Video game movies. Back in the 2000s, that meant only a few things. That one live-action Super Mario Bros. Movie from 1993, some Resident Evil movies for some reason, a bunch of Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter movies, and Doom, the movie. Yes, Doom on the big screen. Doom needs no introduction. Killing demons, insane gore for 1993, and amazing action. And they made this into a movie. Actually, they made two Doom movies, but I'm just going to be focusing on the first one for today. But how come over 20 years later, no one really seems to remember that this movie even existed? That's because it's actually pretty terrible, aside from a couple scenes I'll get into later. So today I'm hoping to find out how what should have been one of the easiest games to adapt turned into a forgettable disappointment of a movie. But since this movie is so forgettable, it'd probably be best to recap the film real quick to get everyone's memory going. Doom 2005 starts with a monologue in space before showing the Universal logo. Instead of the giant Universal text orbiting Earth, it's orbiting Mars, since Doom takes place on Mars. The opening monologue talks about how archaeologists discovered the Ark, a wormhole to an ancient city on Mars, in the year 2026. Can't wait to find a portal to Mars this year. Anyways, 20 years later in the Union Aerospace Corporation, scientists at Mars are getting slaughtered by some mysterious creature. Dr. Carmack, get it, because Adrian Carmack and John Carmack, two of the guys who worked on the OG Doom games. Anyways, Dr. Carmack puts the Mars facility under quarantine and sends out a distress signal before some big monster breaks into his lab. One kind of cool title card later, and we're back on Earth to see our all-star cast of Space Marines. No, not those kinds of Space Marines. Dang, back-to-back 40k references in the video. So, The Rock, or Sarge in this movie, leads the Space Marines. You know how these kind of guys are. Carl Urban, or Reaper, is the only other actually important Space Marine. Love how this movie is supposed to take place 20 years in the future and this guy is playing on a Tiger handheld. Their leave is cancelled as they gotta go and answer the distress signal from the Mars base. After loading up some pretty serious firepower, they go to Black Mesa and take a generic CGI blob teleporter to go to the exact same UAC lab. But with different lighting, so that means they're on Mars now. Whatever. Reaper meets up with his sister, Samantha, who's a scientist working on archaeology, because again they're at an ancient city on Mars that was home to an ancient alien race, and they just kinda hate each other for some reason. Like, their parents died a long while back and they just went their separate ways doing different lines of work, so that means they're constantly fighting. And that's really all there is to it, sparing me from talking about it in more depth later, and it doesn't feel like it's explained much. Samantha, or Sam, discovered some humanoid remains in the ancient Martian city. These ancient humanoids had a synthetic 24th pair of chromosomes that made them just straight up better. But how did they all get wiped out? Ooh, it's a mystery. The Space Marines do eventually find Dr. Carmack, who's feeling a bit under the weather. Later on, he becomes a zombie, or imp, I don't know. The Space Marines go into the sewers, sorry Civvy, where one of the guys just gets bitten. He doesn't die here. He gets taken back to the lab where he eventually kills himself in the middle of turning into a zombie? Whatever. The next hour or so of this movie is just the Marines being picked off one by one in pretty memorable encounters. Or they just get grabbed from the ceiling by a monster and that's the end of them. Sarge also eventually gets the BFG. He gets wasted. Eventually, Sarge, Reaper, and Sam find out that the UAC was doing some human experiments with C24, which gives folks the synthetic 24th pair of chromosomes. Turns out that there's pretty much like a 50-50 chance based on genetics for the C24 to either turn you into a superhuman or a monster. The reason the ancient aliens went extinct is because half of them got superpowers from the 24th pair of chromosomes while the other half turned into Doom 3 imps. Turns out some of the monsters used the Ark to get back to the UAC base in Nevada. They just killed everybody. Sarge wants to make sure the monsters don't get out, so that means shooting dead bodies and executing dying survivors. Kid, yes, that's his name, and this is the only actually important scene with him, finds a large group of survivors and refuses to kill them. Because of this, Sarge executes him. Finally, more than one zombie shows up and attacks the group, taking Sarge and fatally wounding Reaper because his bullet ricocheted off the bad CGI warp wall thing. Whatever. Sam injects Reaper with the C24 and he literally becomes Doom God in this pretty cool first-person section. Sarge turns into a monster, you can tell because he's got Sith eyes and vampire teeth, and he fights the now superhuman Reaper. Reaper wins, of course, but only by kicking him into the Ark, back to Mars and throwing grenades into it. And yeah, that's the movie. Time for the reception. Yeah, so this movie did pretty poorly. It didn't do well at the box office, just barely failing to make up its budget, and it got some pretty poor reviews. Both audiences and critics agreed that this movie was pretty bad. Probably didn't help much that the main audience that showed up to theaters on opening day were young men who were fans of the game, and well, it certainly isn't the game, as I'll make sure to talk about soon. Of course, people have looked upon this movie more fondly over the years, partly because of nostalgia, of course, but it also probably has to do with the fact that we would get a far worse Doom movie many years later. As of making this video, I have yet to subject my eyes to such a travesty just yet. But aside from nostalgia and what came after, I will admit the vibe of this movie is kinda neat. It's really blue and dark and somewhat eerie. Not really. Whatever. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's talk about what went wrong with this movie. I know I started this section in my 65 video the same way, but it works here too. This movie is just kinda boring. It's not completely boring. Like, I didn't fall asleep from this movie or anything, but just nothing happens. It does keep you from falling asleep with cheap fake out jump scares and the occasional actual threats. But other than that, the characters are really boring and bland, and there's nothing much to them. The Rock's Sarge and Carl Urban's Reaper characters are the only really important or fleshed out guys in the crew of Space Marines. The others are either rapists, drug addicts, crosscutters, or just bland. They choose one personality trait for the guys and that's it. This guy's a pervert, so all he does all movie is be a pervert. This guy's young and not ready for combat, and he also gets high mid-mission. Okay, so that's two things, but whatever. This guy's super religious, so he cuts crosses into his arm whenever he takes the Lord's name in vain. Those guys, other than our main two Space Marines who are only memorable because they're main characters and they have big names attached to them, are the only somewhat memorable regular Space Marines, and that's for not exactly the best of traits. Who else is there? There's this one guy who likes Sam. One guy has a minigun. Oh yeah, a minigun! They have a minigun! This guy's just carrying around a minigun like he's the Terminator! How could they mess this up? All he has to do is just mow down a bunch of zombies with a minigun, and he just uses it to shoot an infected monkey that jump scared him in an event.
What was that? A monkey.
How do you mess this up? It can't be that difficult! I'm actually kind of astounded how they were able to mess this up. No, like, really. How do you mess up making a Doom movie? Remember, this is back in 2005 before the modern Doom trilogy expanded upon the lore much more. The most Doom lore there was back in 2005 was from Doom 3, which had cutscenes and some background lore collectibles. It's not like adapting Doom into a movie is some Herculean task. At its core, Doom is about ultra-violence and fast-paced action. If the movie was a Doom guy killing demons for 2 hours, that would have been leagues better than what we got. You have to try to strip that away and degrade this film into a bunch of Space Marines shooting at nothing, finding a zombie every now and then, and only at the end have some actual action. Okay, but let's say we weren't gonna get Doom guy killing demons for 2 hours. Let's say Hollywood was just really adamant about making this movie about a group of Space Marines. They still could have salvaged this idea. Even if we couldn't get Doom guy ripping and tearing all the monsters and demons apart, then we could have at least still gotten a pretty cool mid-2000s action movie with The Rock. But no, we didn't get that. The scene where a horde of zombies attacks Sarge, Reaper, and Sam is actually a good example of the kind of encounters this movie should have been filled with. Just have The Rock gun down a bunch of zombies in a hallway more times throughout the movie. It can't be that hard. You know, usually it's the fans who want a more serious, deep story while Hollywood wants to make a dumb action slot movie. But for once, a dumb action slot movie is exactly what was needed. I'm not saying Doom is dumb or anything, of course. I love Doom. But I don't love Doom because it's some deep story about facing your metaphorical demons or the morality of, I don't know, killing civilians. No, I love Doom because it's Doom! It's a fast-paced, ultra-violent, mindless slaughter of demons. And, you know, there's also puzzles and a great range of music, but also it's Doom! Okay, I think you all get it. I'll stop this nostalgia critic, AVGN, what were they thinking rant. You all get that. You all get that this is nothing like the game. This is not Doom. This is Doom 3. So, if you didn't know, while Doom 1, 2, and 64 are all fast-paced action games, Doom 64 is more horror-focused but still has that action. Doom 3 just went in a completely different direction, being entirely horror-focused. Oh gosh. Oh man. It's kind of the black sheep of the franchise now, since right after, id Software did a course correction, made Doom 2016, and the dark years of Doom were over. I still like Doom 3 though. Near the end of Doom 3, the game starts to pick up some of the action a little bit. Doom 3 guy goes to hell and starts killing a bunch of demons. He gets the BFG, he takes down a cyber demon. Doom 3 was able to be both a horror game and mostly a Doom game. Why? Because it actually gives us demons to kill. It doesn't matter that encounters with large hordes of demons are spread out across the game, since every other room you go into, a demon teleports in or jump scares you, giving you a scare and a chance to do some killing with a terrible shotgun. But in Doom, the movie, there's nothing. There's barely any monsters, and the ones that do show up only show up for a second, get shot at, and that's it for the next 10 minutes. Rock music will play after a monster shows up, the Space Marines shoot at it, it runs away, they chase after it, and when they lose the monster, I kid you not, the music just ends.
Southeast corridor, near the med lab.
Most of the encounters in this movie are just with 1 or 2 zombies at most, until the end. Then it picks up the pace with the huge hordes of zombies in the first person section that's actually pretty awesome. Look at him blow that zombie's brains out. Wait, zombies? Isn't Doom about killing, demons? Yeah, so there aren't really demons in this movie, just zombies, and Doom 3 imps. Also, there's a couple Doom 3 Hell Knights, but I couldn't really tell at first because they're just slightly taller than regular humans and they aren't given some proper introduction. Oh yeah, the character Pinky, who I forgot to talk about, trust me, you're not missing much, turns into a Doom 3 Pinky demon. I don't care that it doesn't make sense for him to turn into a Pinky while everyone else turns into a zombie or an imp. They called this guy Pinky, they gave him the artificial legs, or wheels in this movie, that the Doom 3 Pinky has. If they were going to build all that up just for him to turn into another regular zombie, I'd be pretty pissed. But anyways, other than those few guys, this is just a zombie movie. Granted, Doom has always had zombies as kind of the fodder enemies. The movie didn't just make up zombies in Doom. Now, apparently, in the earlier scripts of the movie, there was going to be a Cacodemon, an Archvile, a Cyber Demon, the Spider Mastermind, and a Hell Portal. The Rock was even supposed to turn into a Baron of Hell at the end, not this weird vampire thing. How cool would that have been? Even if it didn't make much sense. But the Cacodemon was scratched because they couldn't make it look right on film, and the rest were probably cut because, making a huge Cyber Demon and Spider Mastermind would have gone way out of budget. So instead we got a new script where it's just a zombie movie and hell is just a metaphor for the crew's current situation. Yeah, so this movie tried to do symbolism,
I guess you gotta face your demons sometime.
which I don't think was a bad idea, but it's Doom! Even in Doom 3, hell was real and the final third of the game takes place there. You were killing Hellspawn, not just people who were mutated to look like Hellspawn. The main villain of the game made a deal with Satan and he got to become some weird hell dragon or something. But no, hell's just a metaphor in this movie. So I mentioned earlier how the script had to be revised and they had to cut out a lot of stuff. Well, it turns out there were even more behind the scenes trouble this movie faced. For years. Ever since Doom 2 came out in 1994 and became insanely popular, just like the first one, Hollywood has had its eye on making a Doom movie. The license to make the movie just kept going back and forth between different studios before Universal eventually got it. Arnold Schwarzenegger was going to be Doom guy, and honestly would have loved to see that. The project didn't get going for several years due to poor scripts and the fact that no one was really going to produce the movie. Everything really took a turn for the worse when the Columbine High School massacre happened, and it was revealed that the 2 shooters involved were avid Doom fans. Now Doom was back in the public spotlight for the wrong reason. Due to this horrible association, big studios wanted to steer clear of making a Doom movie for quite some time. Hey y'all, editing Colton here. I felt kinda bad after mentioning that the 2 shooters at Columbine were big Doom fans, and 5 minutes ago I was talking about how Doom is awesome because it's a fast-paced, ultra-violent, mindless slaughter. So I just like to clear up or disclaim or whatever that while video game violence is cool and all, obviously real-life violence is pretty horrible. Man, I just wanted to make a silly video about the Doom movie. I didn't think I'd be having to bring up Columbine. Eventually, the project did get back on track. Vin Diesel was going to be in the movie before The Rock signed up so he could play the villain, surprisingly. Probably so he could fire the BFG. The Rock claims to have been a fan of the first Doom game, but if you ask me, and this is just my opinion, I think he was just LARPing as a Doom fan, so it didn't look bad that he was on the front cover of a movie based on a game he knew nothing about. Carl Billy Butcher Urban showed up too, playing the closest this movie has to an actual Doom guy. Eventually, the idea to loosely base the script off of elements from Doom 3, which at the time was the brand new all-the-rage Doom game, was floated around, and it was all over from there. Again, I like Doom 3, but I would have far preferred seeing Arnold Schwarzenegger terminate demons for 2 hours. Now, I already mentioned that the first person scene is pretty awesome, but I also think the first 10 or so minutes of the movie are pretty good too. Of course, there's the mysterious, somewhat scary scene of the monsters breaking out and killing everyone, but also seeing the Space Marines suit up was pretty awesome. Really makes you think that this is going to be some cool action movie. If only that's what it was. Also, the special and practical effects are pretty cool. I like the BFG. They build up the BFG's reveal pretty good, and the effects are pretty cool, even if it gets wasted by getting shot at a wall twice and that's it. The actors playing the Space Marines did get actual military training for their roles, and I think it kinda shows. I like how they move through the place, shouting "clear" as if they were actual soldiers clearing out a building. The acting wasn't too bad either. Just like with 65, the movie is able to build up scenes well, it's just that the payoff is just a bunch of nothingness. A fake out,
I fell in the damn hole.
or literally just one zombie that instantly gets gunned down. Alright, let's wrap this up. Doom 2005 is not a good movie. At all. In fact, it's kinda terrible. It has its moments, sure. I still think the first 10 minutes in the first person section are awesome. It's just that the other, hour and 40 minutes is just nothing. Honestly, that's all I can really describe most of this movie as. Just nothing. Most of it is pretty forgettable and doesn't leave much of an impact at all. Two amazing scenes does not make up for almost 2 hours of a bland, boring, and utterly forgettable film. So, what did we learn from this movie? Don't adapt a beloved video game into a movie without having an understanding of the source material? Have Hollywood make an action slot movie adaptation of the one video game where that makes sense? I don't know. All I can really learn from this movie is that the BFG is actually called the Bioforce gun? What? This is an R-rated movie. No, this is actually an unrated movie, just so they could get some more gore and some zombie boobs in. Call it what it is. It's not the Bioforce gun, it's the
big fucking gun.
Well, at least this movie isn't Doom Annihilation. I might talk about that abomination someday. The Rock won't be here to save us now.
What was that?
A monkey.